The largest animal thought to have ever existed still lives today in the world's oceans. It has a heart the size of a dairy cow and a tongue the weight of an African elephant. While the blue whale is, of course, impressive, it is perhaps more mind-boggling to consider the anatomy of an animal as body size decreases, especially considering the vast majority of life on Earth is no larger than a fingernail. The size of an organism influences every element of its existence, right from the very start. The method by which a species survives over a long period of time is known as life history strategy, and can be most broadly categorized into two approaches. K-strategists invest significantly into nurturing a smaller number of young, which have a higher chance of surviving to adulthood. This means longer gestation and developmental periods, requiring a greater amount of parental care. These animals are most often large in stature, and their population size is governed by the resources available to them in their environment, known as the carrying capacity. These resources are usually stable but limited. If these animals had too many young, the quantity of resources would not support them, and their mortality rate would increase. Consequently, these species are also hit the hardest when their population suddenly decreases, as a result of habitat loss, for example, as it takes them much longer to recover their numbers. Conversely, our strategists produce a significantly larger number of offspring, resulting in minimal parental care. These animals are usually smaller, have much shorter lifespans, and live in environments where resources are readily available, but volatile, leading to rapid population growth under the right conditions. Individually, they are much less likely to survive until adulthood, but this strategy is about quantity, not quality. This also gives them the ability to quickly overcome adverse conditions, allowing for exponential growth after periods where resources have been depleted. Although this categorization between R and K selected species is clearly defined for some animals, others use elements of both strategies. Crocodilians, for example, are some of the world's largest animals and can live longer than humans, but also lay large amounts of eggs, and in some species provide extensive parental care. Likewise, sea turtles have large numbers of young, but also have long lifespans and take a long time to reach sexual maturity, both of which are K-selected traits. On the other end of the spectrum, at just 12 centimeters long, the alpine salamander has the longest gestation period of any terrestrial vertebrate at 38 months, and gives birth to 1 or 2 live young, which can measure up to 5 centimeters in length. Although these approaches seem well thought out and carefully implemented, there is one element that can put a halt to even the most honed life history strategy. Predation is one of the primary considerations of any species when ensuring survival. For many animals, size has a direct impact on their position in the food chain and greatly influences their strategy for survival. For those on the receiving end of predation, avoidance can be broken down into 4 simple steps. The first is to avoid detection altogether. This strategy is most commonly used by smaller animals, which possess the ability to hide in a variety of spaces that simply wouldn't work for those of larger stature. If hiding is not an option, camouflage is also an effective technique, but is also used by predators to sneak up on their prey, which we'll combat in step 3. There are many species of bird which utilize camouflage to a greater extent in their juvenile plumage, during the period where chicks are defenseless and susceptible to predation. If an animal is detected, step 2 is deterring the predator, which can be done in several ways. Larger prey animals rely heavily on their size to ward off predators through intimidation. Even for a big cat, taking down a large herbivore is extremely risky, and one mistake could leave them maimed and unable to hunt, putting not only themselves in danger, but their offspring as well. As such, the decision to attack is made carefully and based on a thorough risk assessment. Intimidation based on size is unlikely to work for smaller animals, so for these species, colour can be used as a deterrent and is often coupled with toxicity. Some of the world's most poisonous animals are tiny in stature, but use colour to convey a warning: "Don't touch me, I'm dangerous." If an animal isn't toxic, it can use mimicry to falsely advertise the unpleasant feature it lacks. Other animals emit a nasty smell or use physical features that are off-putting to potential predators. If prey has been detected and deterrence has either not worked or simply not an option, step 3 is to evade capture. Although smaller animals can be more agile, outrunning predators who are significantly larger can be difficult, so many of these species live in burrows where they flee upon detection. If living underground is not an option, utilizing speed and endurance is the best bet. A cheetah can reach a top speed of 120 km an hour, but can only do so for short periods of time and can be outmaneuvered by the slower but more enduring Thompson's gazelle. If speed is not an animal's strong point, fighting back is the last step in combating predation. This strategy is most effectively utilized by larger species. However, there are several smaller animals that are famously fierce, and while they could be easily overpowered by a larger predator, they are more of a nuisance to pursue than other animals, so stand a slightly better chance of survival. Predators rely on the availability of prey to survive, much like herbivores rely directly on the abundance of their chosen vegetation. Regardless of dietary preference, the larger the animal, the larger the need for resources, the larger the territory required to collect said resources, and, in general, the larger the impact the individual has on its environment, which can be both positive or negative. Some animals have a disproportionately large impact on the ecosystem in which they abide, and are known as keystone species. There are, of course, many examples of larger keystone species. Elephants are referred to as ecosystem engineers and benefit their environment in many ways, from fertilizing the land with their dung to knocking over trees and dispersing seeds over long distances, feats that are only possible because of their body size. It is some of the smaller species, however, that are the most interesting for their abnormally large impact. The average prairie dog weighs no more than 2 to 3 pounds, but serves a vital role on the prairies of North America. In addition to being an important prey animal for many predators such as bobcats, coyotes, and foxes, the network of tunnels created by these rodents provides refuge for a variety of other animals, including the burrowing owl and rattlesnakes, who spend the winter in their burrows. The quality of vegetation on the prairies also increases from regular clipping, benefiting a wide variety of animals, including larger grazers such as bison, who on average eat up to 24 pounds of vegetation per day. Some of the smallest bird species are also vital pollinators. Hummingbirds pick up pollen while extracting the nectar with their bills, and transfer it to other flowers, enabling reproduction. Bees are one of the most commonly cited keystone species for the same reason, benefiting not only natural habitats but agricultural land as well. In terms of interaction with their environment, size can also provide a specific advantage over other animals and dictate the ecological niche a species occupies. Giraffes use their long necks to feast on leaves that other terrestrial herbivores can't reach, reducing the competition for resources. To the east, the world's smallest chameleons are found in the forests of Madagascar. They are known as leaf chameleons and live in the leaf litter on the forest floor, feasting on tiny insects that would be of little value to larger reptiles. In 2021, a new species was discovered, the nano chameleon, which has a snout vent length of 13.5 millimeters and is now thought to be the smallest reptile in the world. Being this small does have its advantages, but it also makes adapting to ecological change different, a problem that some animals overcome with migration. There are multiple reasons why animals migrate, including relocating to a more suitable breeding location and to combat seasonal changes in temperature and the availability of food. Migration is done by large and small animals alike, but the method by which it is undertaken can be shockingly different. The best example is a comparison between the wildebeest migration in Africa and the monarch butterfly migration in North America. Both migrations are done on a yearly basis. The wildebeest migrate in search of grass, and the butterflies to escape the cold winters of the north. What is most different is the number of times this migration is undertaken in an individual's lifespan. The larger wildebeest lives on average for 20 years and will undertake this migration many times over the course of its life. A monarch, on the other hand, usually lives for 2 to 6 weeks, so 2 to 3 generations can be completed over a single summer. With temperatures dropping as fall approaches, a super generation is born, which lives for up to 8 months, and monarchs in the east make the journey south to overwinter in the mountains of central Mexico. Here, they huddle together on fir trees, which provide a stable environment and adequate temperatures for the 4 months they'll spend here. In the spring, this same generation begins its return journey north, but only makes it to the southern states where they breed and the next generation takes over. It can take as many as 4 to 5 generations for monarch butterflies to make the journey back to the northern states and Canada, where they spend their summers. Animal behavior is a complex and fascinating topic, and many behavioral traits are strongly influenced by body size, with communication being one of the best examples. The vocalizations used by larger animals are generally produced at lower frequencies, compared to those of smaller animals which produce high-frequency vocalizations. A study published in Nature analysed over 90 mammal species from the orders Primates and Carnivora, and found a strong negative correlation between body length and dominant frequency, most clearly in primates. The dominant frequency of gorillas and orangutans was found to be among the lowest, whereas that of the smallest primate, the pygmy marmoset, and various species of tamarin were found to be the highest. Low frequencies can be carried over longer distances, and thus can be better used to communicate over the larger ranges that larger animals occupy. Communication plays a crucial role in animal society, and while it makes sense that larger animals with larger brains would have the most complex societies, this is not always the case. Some of the smallest creatures on Earth form some of the most intricate and highly organized societies in the animal kingdom. Ants are defined as eusocial, which in addition to living in groups, means that generations overlap, members engage in the care of other members young, and there is a division of labour between those who are reproductive and those who are not. In ant society, this is referred to as the caste system, and consists of reproductive females, known as queens, reproductive males, and non-reproductive females, known as workers. Each of these castes has a function within the society, and they all work together to ensure the survival of the species. There are many other examples of animals living in large groups, but this is not necessarily related to size. Many small fish form schools for protection, but this behavior is also mirrored in larger species, most terrifyingly in hammerhead sharks. Likewise, group behavior is also displayed in bird species of all sizes. Starlings can be observed dancing in the sky in flocks of millions, and the much larger lesser flamingo can also be observed by the million. So far we've discussed how the size of different species influences their existence, but size can also play an important role between individuals of the same species. Sexual dimorphism refers to the difference in physical characteristics between males and females. In most mammal species, the male is larger than the female, an evolutionary trait that is, amongst other reasons, thought to be related to sexual selection, with larger males on average producing healthier offspring, in addition to being able to provide better protection and better access to resources for the family. In other orders, it is common for the female to be larger than the male. There are many theories for this. In birds of prey, it is thought that the larger female has an increased ability to defend her eggs from predators, and is therefore favoured by natural selection. In arachnids and fish that see some of the most extreme forms of sexual dimorphism, it is thought to be related to an increased reproductive capacity. There is in fact a rule, Wrench's rule, that states that past a certain point, the larger the body size, the more exaggerated sexual dimorphism is in favour of males, and on the other side, the smaller the body size is, the more exaggerated sexual dimorphism is in favour of females. This correlates with the traits of R and K selection theory, where the success of R-related species, which are often smaller, is based on reproductive capacity and where it would therefore be beneficial for females to be as large as possible. The biological differences between large and small animals could be a separate video in and of itself, lasting many hours. So to conclude this video, we'll focus on 3 of the most interesting differences between vertebrates, which includes the largest animals on the planet, and arthropods, which include some of the smallest. Vertebrates are defined by the presence of a vertebral column, which is part of a larger musculoskeletal system that protects their vital organs and facilitates movement. These systems are almost unfathomable in some vertebrates, the smallest of which is a species of frog from Papua New Guinea, which measures just 7.7 millimeters. Arthropods, on the other hand, exhibit an exoskeleton, which also functions to protect their internal organs and serves as an attachment point for their muscles. In vertebrates, the musculoskeletal system grows proportionately to the rest of the body, whereas arthropods must undergo a process called ecdysis, during which they periodically molt their exoskeleton to allow for growth. The cardiovascular and respiratory systems also function in different ways. Vertebrates have a closed circulatory system, where blood is contained within vessels which deliver oxygen and nutrients to the cells and remove waste. Arthropods, on the other hand, possess an open circulatory system. The body cavity inside their exoskeleton, known as a hemocoel, is filled with a liquid known as hemolymph, which is circulated by their heart and a limited system of arteries. Mammals, reptiles, and birds breathe using lungs which take oxygen from the air, deposit it into the bloodstream, and remove CO2. Fish do this with gills, and some amphibians with their skin. Being such a diverse group of animals, arthropods exhibit a variety of respiratory systems, including a tracheal system in insects and arachnids, where the oxygen is delivered directly to the tissues. In terms of sensory organs, eyes are one of the most interesting and differ drastically between vertebrates and arthropods. Although there are some intricacies, humans and other vertebrates share the same type of eye, known as camera type. These eyes have a single lens that focuses light onto the retina, which captures the image. Most insects, on the other hand, have compound eyes, which contain many individual units, each of which has a lens, and each of which captures an image. The brain processes all of these images, and thanks to the large size of many of these eyes, insects gain a wide range of vision without the need to move the eye or turn the head. While some of these differences are stark, there are many characteristics shared by all life on Earth, making us more similar than one might think. Advancements in genome sequencing have shown that humans share almost 99% of the DNA present in chimpanzees, a process you can learn about in this video. Thank you so much for watching.